All right. So I want to start by thanking Raphael for covering about half of my presentation. That's going to make my work a lot easier. So I would like to start by expressing all my gratitude to Hugo for organizing this symposium at Cambridge and for inviting my colleague and I to present on the Library of Glissant Studies, a digital bibliography we launched in March 2018. So my presentation it's not about my research. So after graduating in the spring, my dissertation and I needed some time apart before meeting again and continuing our journey together. So I'm very happy to talk about the fun part of my research, the Library of Glissant Studies. And I feel obliged to justify myself as to why am I talking in English when I'm very French. And so here is why. So I'm giving this talk in English as a way to ensure that, first of all, students who are attending our session will be able to follow this introduction, even though I know, thanks to Hugo, you all speak French beautifully. So regardless of their level of French, since the Library of Glissant Studies is first a tool designed to help everyone further their research in the field of Glissant Studies, regardless of your language. So presenting in English also illustrates that this project was not created for just French speakers with only French materials, but that it welcomes all the languages of the world. Edouard Glissant writes in the Caribbean Discourse that plurilingualism is one of the paths to relation as well as cultural métissage, and that, and I quote here Edouard Glissant, plurilingualism diffuses the written text in a concrete diversity of which we must immediately explore the unknown path. End quote. Therefore, in keeping with Glissant's conception of plurilingualism, the Library of Glissant Studies strives to facilitate exchanges by including multiple languages from geographical disparate areas and to encourage students, scholars, but also readers to explore les accès inconnus, the unknown path in Glissant's literary production. So here in my presentation today, I'm going to address 4 questions, and we can talk a little bit more about how the project is structured during the Q&A after my talk. So the first question will simply be, what is the Library of Glissant Studies? Then I will show you the type of material you can find on the website. And then I will answer the question, why do we need to think digital when it comes to Edouard Glissant and criticism in Glissant Studies? But my colleague already answered most of that, so I'm just going to quote him in the original French. And finally, I will conclude by explaining how you can become involved in the project and also what we wish to accomplish in the future. So first of all, here is a preview of the main page of the website. So as you can see, right now it's in English, but in the future we hope to develop a Spanish platform and a French one. The content will be the same, and because we have little to no text, we will just translate the menu and the few links that we have only in English. So the Library of Glissant Studies is an open access website dedicated to making text by and about the Martinican author Edouard Glissant known and widely available on one dedicated platform. So when you have a paper to write, when you have a final to write about Edouard Glissant, this is where you go. You don't have to go to G-Store, to walk out, to news. You don't have to go anywhere. You just go there and everything is on one platform. This is a unique bibliographical tool, draws on this unique bibliographical tool, draw on Alain Baudot's remarkable book entitled Bibliographie annotée d'Edouard Glissant, which contains more than 1,300 references. Baudot's out-of-print volume was discontinued in 1993 and is now outdated. Since the summer of 2017, the logs, so logs is for Library of Glissant Studies, the logs team has been expanding this collection of references, posting text, article, book, and audio-visual documents on the website glissantstudies.com. For the student with computers, glissantstudies.com. This is where all the information is. Now, including all the languages of publication and translations of Glissant's production. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples after. In addition to Edouard Glissant literary production, so poems, articles, essays, novels, plays, conferences, interview, everything you can imagine, videos. From 1947 to 2011, the site also offers an updated inventory of research work, including thesis, so master thesis, but also doctoral dissertation, articles, essay, book, press clipping, and any other document relating to the study, reception, and the diffusion of the work of Edouard Glissant. Normally I'm loud enough, but if you can hear me, just let me know. So as you can see, we divided the website in two main categories. The first one would be walk by, and the second one walks on. Walk by, you will have the book, the translation. So books, essay, novels, we decided not to separate anything because, as you know, Glisson mixes all the literary genres, so we decided to put all the books in one category. Poems, so those are poems that were published as one in a literary journal, for instance. Articles and short text, preface, conferences, interviews, and such. So this is one of the categories that we have. This is the part walks on. So we have the monograph, the book referencing, articles, theses, conferences, newspaper, etc. In each category, you have all the languages. So we decided not to divide. One page is for Spanish, one for French, one for German, Japanese, Creole, all of that. They are all in one page. And finally, this is an archive page where you can see document, photograph, lectures, and interview, videos, so YouTube video mostly, audio, so those will be radio interview or conferences, and events. So those will be colloquium organized by Edouard Glisson, and I will show you one later. So the digital bibliography will not be possible without the help and support of dozens of dedicated individuals and institutions across the world. Our interdisciplinary team of scholars is dedicated to fostering greater accessibility to past and current work, and to create a discussion with a wide and diverse audience composed of reader, student, and scholar. With the intention of placing this material in one place, we had to think about how to build a digital bibliography to examine our digital practices in order to create and design a unique tool faithful not only to Glisson's work and philosophy, but also to our wish to further research and collaboration while being as inclusive as possible. In the filiation of Jérôme Magan, the founder of the Rossetti Archives, the Library of Glisson Studies was created to facilitate the consultation of sources without determining the method of analysis that must be used. Meaning that when you go to some category, for instance, the one about books, this is what you're going to find. So here you have one in German, one in English, and one in French. And as you can see, there is no comment, there is no summary. We decided to not write anything about the bibliography, to not have an annotated bibliography, because already writing our own summary is giving you an opinion, a subjective opinion about the work of the critic of the work, or the work of Edouard Glisson. We are giving you the information, but you're the one, the student or the scholar or just the reader, who has to create the connection and who has to look at the document that you can see and formulate your own question. But at least you know you have everything, you will have everything in the near future in one place. So this is how it's organized in general. More generally, the project responds to the growing interest surrounding Edouard Glisson's work. For instance, the number of doctoral theses in France devoted to Edouard Glisson's thought has increased from 26 completed doctoral dissertations in 2008 to a total of 238 in the period from 2009 and to 2017. So now you see also why a tool like that is needed today. According to the French database Fichier Central des Thèses. In the United States, so far it is 681 doctoral theses about Edouard Glisson to this day. So you can see also the growing interest in Glisson studies. In addition, Glisson's contribution and innovation are continuously being studied and debated in university and institutions around the globe. In Cambridge, in Liverpool in England, Waseda University in Japan, the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico, and many other places such as La Casa de las Americas in Cuba, Louisiana State University. And one thing we realized with my colleague is that even if Edouard Glisson is studied in Japan, and sometimes articles are produced in French, we have no idea what this critical production is, because we don't know where to go to look for it, or what happened in Spain or in Mexico, because sometimes we don't know the literary journal that they have in South America, for instance, and it's complicated to access the information, or in Brazil. So with the Library of Glisson Studies, we have everything in one place, and it's easy for me to see what my colleagues are doing all over the world. And also because Glisson traveled and gave numerous talks in Japan, in Cuba, in the United States, in the UK, in Germany, in many places. Some of the archives are only in Japan. Maybe I cannot go to Japan, but I need to see something that they have at Waseda University. So what we do, they send us the material and we post it there and we let you know where it's from. So I'm going to try to conclude and show you the material that we have. So this was the answer to the question, why do we need to think digital when it comes to Edouard Glissant's bibliography and archive? So this is a screenshot from the archive that says languages, ressassement, répétition, retour, oralisé dans l'écriture. So this echoes what Raphaël was saying in his presentation, the fact that when he talks about archéologie relationnelle, if we want to understand and walk on the walk of Edouard Glissant, if we want to walk, for instance, on the poetic of intention, l'intention poétique, the poetic intention, we need some time to go back further, to go back to these articles that were published 10 years prior to the publication of his first essay, to see what he originally wrote, what changed, what he decided to keep, what he decided not to include in l'intention poétique, and that way we can really see the ressassement happening in front of our very eyes. It's concrete, it's material, you can almost touch it, and you can see the evolution and how the work evolved throughout the year. And sometimes also from a pedagogical point of view, it's also a very good tool to have for the students and also to teach in your classes, because you can find shorter text that explain very complicated concepts and that you can give to undergraduate classes as well. So this was to echo also the fact that Raphaël was talking about that technique, de l'entassement, de la reprise, de la répétition, and this is why we thought we needed to have such an archive, so you can see the evolution of Glissant's work throughout the year. So just briefly, I'm going to show you some material that you can find on the website. So for instance, this is one of the first pages that we created, and here you have a reference of every translation that we know of Glissant's work. I think this is maybe a more complete page. So you can see it's organized. You have English, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, Dutch, Slovenian, Japanese, Vietnamian. This is not Russian, this is Bulgar, and this was one of the very first translations of La Lézard, interestingly enough. So you have it here. It was published in 1985. For some of them, when we can, you have a link that will take you to the material. And for this one, for instance, we're still trying to figure out where it is. And as soon as we have a link, we'll of course share it. This is also the type of material you can find on the website. This was a foreword written by Glissant when he was asked to rewrite in modern French the Mémoire de Monsieur de D'Artagnan. So for scholars around the world working on the notion of history, for instance, this would be something that maybe you want to check. So this is something that you can access on our website. So as you can see, it's just 10 pages long, but this is something that often you will not find in your library, or that people don't really know. This is also, we have a section in the archive showing events where Edouard Glissant was either the presenter or the organizer. And so in that particular section, we use that as an opportunity to add texts that were not written by Glissant, but that could be of interest for people working on Glissant. And that's why you will have, for instance, the monologue, I never can say that in English, but you guys can read it. Of the Other by Jacques Derrida. So this is a pretty cool thing to read, because that's the talk that he actually gave in Baton Rouge in April 1992. So you have the flyer, you have the press release describing the event, and you have a couple of other lectures that were given during that event, and also the poster. And that's the same thing for the plantation system. And so sometimes we add a couple of articles just to help you learn more about the event. You see here I added the text related to the event. It was published later, Theorization in the Making of the Americas, but Glissant refers back to the colloquy of the plantation system. So that's also something that you can find on the Library of Glissant Studies. This was a scan from an interview that Glissant gave in 1992 in December, so right before the publication of Le Tout-Monde. This was an article written when he got the Prix Renaudot, so this was written by Nadeau in November 1958. So as you can see, by Maurice Nadeau, and so here you have also the reception of the work. Okay, so when Glissant was publishing a novel, what did the critic wrote about it? So we have, for instance, a pretty cool article from Jean d'Ormesson, where he wrote that the Lézard was horrible, was atrocious, that this was a terrible text. And for me, this is one of the things that I love to read. It's really fun to compare the work of Glissant and also its reception. And we also have a calendar where you can find every event happening about Edouard Glissant all around the world. So if you're doing some research and you want to know what happened in the past, well, it's quite easy. You just go back here and it's going to show you what happened over the past few years. We started that 2 years ago, and we try to keep it as complete and up to date as possible. Okay. Sorry. So I'm going off script here, but because I want to make sure that I stop talking at some point. So our team also makes sure that we make the work of Edouard Glissant accessible for everybody, and that we also keep a conversation going. So that's why we also have a Twitter page where sometimes people will ask us, this is the text that I want to teach in my classroom. I want to teach this part of Poétique de la Relation. Do you have any article that you would recommend for a class of undergrad? And that's where we have someone that says, yes, this is what you can go and check, this is what you can read, or maybe you should also look at that article published a few years before. So that way we can all share, communicate, exchange, and collaborate, which is very important in academia, to share information and to help one another to be better teachers, better students, but also better scholars. And that's why we also have Instagram. So where we share pictures and the different posts that we have. So for instance, the one on the right was the post about echoes from elsewhere. The one in the middle was a video from an exhibit that is happening right now in Miami, where the Library of Glissant Studies helped the curators by providing documents. So we wanted also to let the people know about the event. And this is also what we post generally on Facebook. So anytime we get very excited because we found a new document, we write a post to let everybody know, and then if it fits your research, feel free to use it. Of course, mention the Library of Glissant Studies. But we also post about new publications. So this was published this month, Glissant and the Middle Passage, a new translation. This was for Glissant's birthday, and the one in the middle is my favorite because that's one that we found that is an original part of the Caribbean discourse. That was first published, as you can see in the talk, on April 10 to 12, 1995, Edouard Glissant participated in the first international symposium at ethnopoetics. And the text that you have here is the text that became later Poétique naturelle, Poétique forcée. So it's also very interesting to see where it was before it ended up in the Caribbean discourse, because it can also help us understand the text better. So this is the type of document that you can find on logs. So in the future, we hope to create a better platform to be more inclusive and to be able to have a platform in several languages. We also, right now we have a search bar where you can type some word, but we want in the future to make sure that you can organize your research not only in chronological order, but by alphabetical order, by languages, by geographical area, and such. So that's why we've been working to get grants in order to have a more functional and ludic website. And also, we want to have a team that includes more and more students, more and more scholars, more and more professors. Oh, I know, I'm looking at them, I see them. So if you are looking for material, but if also you are writing an article and you publish it, and you want people to know about it, you can email it to us, and we will of course add it to the website. And this is one document that we have not posted yet on logs, but this is to show you that we keep adding material every week. This is not even in the Bibliographie annotée d'Edouard Glissant. So as far as I know, no one knows that it even exists. So this was published in 1960 in a literary journal entitled La Voix des Poètes, and this eventually ended up 9 years later in L'Intention Poétique. So this is on page 26, if you want to check, of L'Intention Poétique, and it's very interesting to see what Glissant changed between this first publication and the publication that happened 9 years later. And it's also interesting to see that this, in parentheses, you have the word extrait, when in L'Intention Poétique, this is the exact same poem. So is there a longer part that is published elsewhere? We don't know. If you do know, please let us know. So to conclude, what we want to work on in the future, so as you can see here, conclusion, travail de longue haleine, travail de petite réalisation. So it took us 2 years to be able to accomplish this part of the work. Right now, we just developed a new log team in Italy. We have one in Cuba, so we have divided our team into a geographical group. We have one in France, one in the UK, one in Sweden, one in Japan, one in Cuba, now one in Italy, soon one in Germany. And now we are waiting for the one in the UK to take off so we can know what is being published in the UK. We are already keeping track of the press of the University of Liverpool press. And we wish to expand and to keep collaborate with many archives, especially the BNF, to be able to add more and more material to the website. Thank you, and if you have any questions, please ask Raphael.